Today, we're digging into the story of a civilization that built a colossal empire, challenged the pharaohs of Egypt, pioneered world-changing technology, and then just vanished from history. Let's talk about the incredible, forgotten story of the Hittites.
I mean, seriously think about that question for a second. What if a power, on par with the titans of the ancient world, just disappeared? Not just fell, but was erased from our collective memory for thousands of years. Well, that's exactly what happened here.
And just to be crystal clear, we are not talking about some minor kingdom. We're talking about a true superpower. When you think of this era, Egypt and Babylon are the names that pop into your head, right? But for a huge chunk of history, the Hittite Empire was right there with them, an absolute equal in power, culture, and influence.
All right, so let's pull back the curtain on this forgotten superpower and really figure out who the Hittites were.
So the Hittites emerged from a region called Anatolia, that's modern-day Turkey, around 1600 BCE. And they weren't just some local players, they built this huge, organized empire that could go toe-to-toe with the biggest names in the Near East.
So how'd they do it? How did this kingdom from Anatolia become such a force to be reckoned with? Well, their rise to power was nothing short of swift and dramatic.
And what's really remarkable is just how fast it all happened. You know, they start as migrants moving into the area, but within just a few centuries, under these really strong leaders like Hattusili I, they pull it all together. And then they pull off the big one, a stunning, audacious raid on Babylon itself.
Think about the sheer guts of that move. This wasn't just a little border skirmish, this was a knockout blow that completely shook up the politics of the entire region. The Hittites had arrived, and boy did they mean business.
So, with Babylon humbled, the Hittites' continued expansion put them on a collision course with the only other superpower in the region, the mighty Egyptian Empire.
And this, right here, is the central drama of their story. I mean, it's one thing to raid a rival, but it's a whole different ballgame to challenge the empire of the pharaohs at the absolute height of its power.
And that challenge came to a head in one of the most famous battles in all of ancient history, the Battle of Kadesh. We're talking two colossal armies, led by two legendary rulers, clashing for control of the known world.
The year was around 1274 BCE. The two most powerful armies on Earth clashed in this epic, bloody fight. But here's the thing. Despite the thousands of chariots and soldiers, it basically ended in a stalemate. Neither side could really claim they won. And what happened next is what truly made history.
Instead of just fighting forever, they chose diplomacy. This quote from the actual treaty they signed shows this incredible shift in thinking. They weren't just warriors, they were statesmen, and they were looking for some stability.
And listen, this wasn't just any agreement. The Treaty of Kadesh is the earliest surviving peace treaty between two major powers that we have ever found. It was a truly groundbreaking moment in international diplomacy.
But their success wasn't just about being tough on the battlefield or smart at the negotiating table. It was built on a foundation of some really unique cultural and technological advantages. So let's take a look at the Hittite blueprint for building an empire.
Okay, one of their coolest innovations was their legal system. While their neighbors, like the Babylonians, were all about an eye for an eye, retribution, the Hittites focused on compensation. If you did something wrong, you paid for the damages. It was a remarkably advanced and honestly humane way to think about justice.
Technologically, they were total pioneers. While most of the world was still relying on bronze, the Hittites were mastering iron smelting. This gave them a decisive edge. We're talking stronger, more durable weapons and tools that fueled both their army and their economy.
Culturally, they were incredibly adaptive. This is how they actually describe themselves, and it just perfectly captures their whole approach. They didn't just impose their own culture, they absorbed the best of what they came across.
I mean, think about this. They spoke an early Indo-European language, part of a family that would one day give us English and Hindi, but they used Mesopotamian cuneiform for all their official business. Their group of gods was a blend of deities from all over the empire. This tolerance, this adaptability, was a core strength.
And yet, despite all of this, despite their strength, their innovation, their sophistication, their empire collapsed. So what happened? How did this powerhouse just vanish?
Well, it wasn't one single thing, but a devastating combination of factors, a perfect storm. You had these mysterious invaders from the sea, who we called the Sea Peoples, launching attacks across the whole region. At the same time, the empire was being crippled by famine, economic trouble, and rebellions from within. It was a storm they just couldn't weather.
Their capital city, Hattusa, was burned to the ground and abandoned. And for millennia, the Hittites were largely forgotten. But the story doesn't end there. Their echoes were just waiting to be found.
And this is how we finally solved that mystery we started with. Beginning in the late 1800s, archaeologists started unearthing clues. Then, in the early 20th century, the excavation of their lost capital, Hattusa, brought their whole world back to life, revealing the true scale of their forgotten civilization.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? The Hittites were true innovators. Their mastery of iron helped kick off the Iron Age. Their treaty with Egypt set a brand new precedent for international law. Their legal codes were way ahead of their time, and their culture is a key piece of the vast Indo-European story. They weren't just a footnote, they were history makers.
You know, the rediscovery of the Hittites reminds us that history is this living, breathing field of discovery. What we think we know is just a tiny fraction of what really happened. And it just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? How many other great stories are still out there, buried under the sand, just waiting for us to find them?